Story number 1. The Locked Classroom. I never intended to teach. After college, I was between jobs and desperate for money when I applied as a substitute teacher through a temp agency. A week later, I got a call. They needed someone to cover English classes for 2 weeks at Black Ridge High, a school in a rural county I'd never heard of. The job sounded easy enough. 5 classes, mostly juniors and seniors, a desk to myself, and lesson plans already laid out. The only odd thing was the message from the vice principal, Mr. Keller, before I started. "You'll be in room 214. Please don't use or unlock room 213 under any circumstances. That door should remain locked." I arrived Monday morning and found room 214, a sunlit space at the end of a quiet hallway. It was right beside 213, which, true to Keller's word, had a rusted padlock on it. The door was marked by a discolored sign and layers of dust clinging to its frame. A few students glanced at it nervously as they passed. I made a joke about it, something like, "What's in there, a vampire?" But no one laughed. One student muttered under his breath, "You don't want to know." On the 3rd day, during second period, something happened. The class was reading silently when we all heard a knocking sound. It came from room 213. The knock was sharp, 3 slow bangs on the other side of the wall. Everyone froze. A few kids exchanged nervous glances. I said, "Probably the pipes," half smiling. "No pipes in that wall," said a girl named Rena. "That room's been sealed since before I got here. My sister said someone died in there." I laughed awkwardly. Urban legend, I'm sure. But even as I said it, I didn't believe it. That afternoon, I asked the school custodian, Mr. Ramirez, about it. He was an older guy, soft-spoken, always chewing gum. When I mentioned room 213, he stopped sweeping and looked up. "They should have knocked it down." I blinked. "Why?" "Because bad things don't stay locked forever." Then he turned away and walked off, leaving me standing there with goosebumps. The next day, I found a yearbook from 2007 while cleaning the back cabinet in room 214. I flipped through it and found a picture of room 213's homeroom class. 24 students, 1 teacher. The caption read, "Homeroom 213, Ms. A. Weller." The teacher was standing stiffly in the corner, hands clenched. Her eyes looked wrong. Not red-eye, not blur, just cold, angry, staring directly into the camera. I thought maybe it was just an unflattering photo. But the next page showed something stranger, a memorial section. "In memory of Ms. Angela Weller, 1971 to 2007. That night, I looked up her name. According to an old local newspaper article, Ms. Weller had died inside room 213 during school hours. The article said medical complications, but the comment section was filled with students claiming otherwise. She locked the door herself. We all heard the scream. She was already gone before anyone got inside. Apparently, room 213 was sealed immediately after her death and never reopened. The next morning, the air in room 214 felt heavier. My second period class came in unusually quiet. One student refused to sit in the back near the shared wall with 213. She moved her desk up front without saying a word. Halfway through class, the lights flickered, and then we heard it again. Knock, knock, knock. I stepped into the hallway, heart racing. Room 213's door hadn't moved. The padlock was still in place. But the dust at the threshold had been disturbed, like something had been dragged through it. That afternoon, I checked the desk drawer again. I found a spiral notebook I hadn't noticed before. Plain cover, no name. Inside, it was filled with notes in different handwriting styles. Some were dated, others weren't, all written by previous substitutes. One entry stood out. If you hear the knocks, do not respond. If you dream about the classroom, leave the school. If the padlock breaks, run. That night, I had the dream. I was in room 213. Everything was tinted gray. The windows were sealed shut. The air smelled like chalk and copper. Desks were upturned. The blackboard read, "She won't let me leave." Then I turned and saw her. A woman in a long, faded skirt, hair down to her elbows, eyes blacked out like burned photographs. She stepped forward. I couldn't move. When I woke up, I was sitting upright in bed, heart pounding, and I had dust on my hands. The next day, I told Mr. Keller. He looked at me for a long time and finally said, "You're not the first, but it's not the school's fault. It's that room. It's wrong. Why not tear it down?" We tried 3 times. Contractors refuse. Tools break. One man ended up in the hospital. We don't go near it anymore. I asked if I could leave my assignment early. He didn't even hesitate. Yes. But I had one more day, and something inside me wanted to see it through. That morning, I entered room 214 and froze. The padlock on room 213 was gone. The door stood slightly ajar. The hallway was silent, the air ice cold. I stepped closer. Something compelled me, not curiosity, not bravery. It felt like obedience. Then I heard her voice. "Come in." I pushed the door open. Room 213 looked untouched. Desks arranged neatly, chalk still on the tray, a cracked photo on the wall. And in the corner, a woman, dressed like in my dream, face hidden by her hair. She lifted her head slowly. Her eyes were holes, empty sockets, leaking ash. Class begins. The door slammed shut behind me. I don't remember how I got out. All I know is I woke up in the nurse's office, disoriented. Keller said I was found passed out in the hallway. There was no sign the door had been opened, and the padlock still there. I never went back, but sometimes I see her, reflected in mirrors, bus windows, store glass, standing still, waiting, and sometimes I hear it, knock, knock, knock. They should have torn down the room, because not all classes can be dismissed.
Story number 2, The Last Bell. I was 14 when it happened. Friday, April 13th, a day I'll never forget. I'd gotten detention for talking back to my history teacher, Mr. Dwyer. Nothing serious, just some sarcasm after a long, boring quiz. He told me to stay after school for 1 hour. I remember feeling annoyed. The classroom emptied by 3:10 p.m. sharp. I was alone. Mr. Dwyer handed me a packet of worksheets, told me to finish them, and said he'd be back in 30 minutes. When he walked out, the door clicked shut behind him. At first, it was peaceful. I worked in silence, listening to the soft hum of the overhead lights. The school felt like a different place when it was empty, less chaotic, less noisy. But after about 10 minutes, I noticed something strange. The hallway, which had been silent, suddenly echoed with footsteps. Slow, deliberate footsteps. I assumed it was Mr. Dwyer returning, but the steps didn't approach the room. They just passed and faded. I peeked into the hallway. It was empty. I tried to get back to my work, but the silence had changed. It felt thick now, pressurized, the way the air feels before a storm. Then I heard it, a metallic slam, like someone kicking a locker shut. I stepped out into the hall. The lights above flickered faintly. Lockers lined both sides, untouched, closed. And then I saw it, locker 119, hanging open just slightly. No one had used it in years. It belonged to a kid named Tommy Marsh. He disappeared in 1997. I approached the locker slowly, heart thudding. Inside, I found a manila folder, yellowed with age, sitting on the top shelf. Written in faded Sharpie, T. Marsh, do not release. I opened it. There were photocopies of counselor notes, disciplinary slips, even a drawing, a tall figure in black with long arms and no face. Underneath, the kid had written in pencil, "He lives in the quiet." I dropped the file. As I backed away, I heard a voice echo down the hall. Not yelling, whispering. A low, childlike voice repeating the same phrase over and over. "Don't turn around. Don't turn around." I spun around anyway. Nothing was there, but the air had gone ice cold. I ran back into the classroom. The worksheets were gone. So was my bag. So was the clock on the wall. And outside the window, it wasn't dark, but it wasn't daylight either, just a gray fog, like the world had paused. I tried the classroom door. Locked. Then the PA system clicked on. The speakers above crackled to life with a loud hiss. And then a girl's voice began speaking. Flat, robotic, emotionless. This is the final warning. Stay seated, eyes forward. Do not acknowledge them. I stared at the speaker in disbelief. Then silence again. I wasn't alone. I pressed my ear to the door. Footsteps again, this time faster, rushing, sprinting. I looked through the narrow hallway window and saw a blur pass by. Tall, black, almost like smoke in human form. Then another. No faces, just flickers, shadows with limbs. They ran past again, but then one stopped, turned, and stared directly at me. The school bell rang, once, loud, metallic, long. I covered my ears, and when I opened my eyes again, the classroom door was open, just open. I stepped into the hallway slowly. That's when I saw the boy, small, maybe 12 years old, standing in front of locker 119. He turned toward me. His face was pale, lips cracked, eyes wide and hollow. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. Then he raised one hand and pointed down the hallway toward the gym and vanished. I didn't want to go, but something pulled me forward. The hallway stretched endlessly. Every light I passed flickered and dimmed. When I reached the gym doors, I heard crying inside, a soft, choked sob. I pushed the doors open. The gym was dark. No lights, just moonlight spilling through the high windows. And there, sitting alone at the center of the court, was a woman, back to me, hair tangled, clothes tattered. She rocked back and forth, whispering the same words over and over. I told them not to ring it. I told them not to ring it. Then she went still and began to stand. She turned, and where her eyes should have been, there were burned sockets. She screamed loud and suddenly, and everything around me shook. Bleachers collapsed, the floor cracked, the ceiling groaned. I ran. I don't remember the hallway. I just remember bursting out a side door and falling onto the grass. It was morning. Birds were chirping. Mr. Dwyer stood above me, holding my backpack. "How'd you get outside?" he asked. I couldn't answer. A week later, I came back to school. I couldn't stay away. I snuck into the counselor's office and found the file again. But this time, something new was inside. A cassette tape labeled Final Bell 1997. I found an old player and hit play. The tape began with static. Then I heard screams, children screaming, running, lockers slamming. Then a bell rang, and then silence. I left the school and never returned. But sometimes when I hear bells, church bells, bike bells, even my phone ringtone, I freeze, because I swear every time I hear something in the background, a whisper, "Don't turn around. Story number 3. Morning announcements. I used to love the morning announcements. I was in my senior year at Sunnyside High, a small school in a quiet Midwestern town. Every morning at 8 a.m., the intercom would crackle, and the voice of our principal, Mr. Hardley, would echo through the halls. "Good morning, Tigers! Let's make today a great one." Corny, sure, but it was routine, something you could count on. Until one Monday in October. That's when it all changed. That morning, instead of Mr. Hardley's usual greeting, we got static. Sharp, unpleasant, piercing. Everyone in homeroom froze. The static lasted for a full 30 seconds, followed by silence. Then a voice came on. But it wasn't Mr. Hardley. It was a young girl. Her voice was hollow, monotone. October 3rd. The sun rises, but will not see. Today they forget. Today they remember. Then, click. Silence. The classroom buzzed with nervous energy. Some students laughed it off. A prank, they figured. But a few of us, me included, were unsettled. Mr. Hardley didn't mention it all day. When someone asked him in fourth period, he waved it off as a technical glitch. But I saw his face. He looked like he'd seen a ghost. Later that day, in history class, our teacher, Mrs. Hagan, seemed distracted. She pulled out a dusty folder and began talking about a fire that happened in the school back in 1973. 3rd of October, 12 students died. 1 teacher. That caught our attention. Electrical malfunction, she said. Started in the AV room. They say the intercom short-circuited and kept playing even after the fire had spread. Then she paused. They say you could hear a girl's voice over the speakers, warning everyone to get out, but no one listened. Between classes, I walked past the old AV room, now storage. The door was locked, the lights off. I leaned in and put my ear to the door. Nothing. But the doorknob was cold, freezing, like something on the other side was draining the heat out of the metal. Tuesday morning, same time. The intercom hissed, and the girl's voice returned. "Do you see them? They never left. They burn. They walk. The halls remember." Everyone froze. No one moved. Then, just like before, click. The day continued, but the air in the school had changed. Teachers whispered in corners. The vice principal stood near the AV room all afternoon. And after the final bell, someone had scratched words into a locker. She tried to warn us. That evening, I went to the town library. I found a newspaper from October 4th, 1973. Headline: Tragedy Strikes Sunnyside High. Fire Claims 13. The article listed the names. One stood out: Amiria H. Rhodes, 17 years old. The article said she was in the AV club and had attempted to use the intercom to alert others during the fire. But by the time help arrived, she was already gone. I told my best friend, Tyler. He dared me to go back to the school that night. So we snuck in around 9 p.m. through a side door that never locked properly. Inside, the building was ice cold, completely dark. We made our way to the old AV room. I picked the lock with a bobby pin. Don't ask how I know how. Inside, dust-covered equipment, old monitors, and in the back, a box labeled 1973 Broadcasts. Inside the box, reel tapes, cracked headphones, and a cassette labeled Final AM, 10:03. We played the tape on one of the old machines. It began with typical announcements, a weather report, lunch menu, and pep rally news. Then, about 3 minutes in, a new voice came in, shaky, frantic. "Fire! It's in the West Wing! Please, someone tell them! Get out!" And then, screams. Explosions. Then silence. Tyler and I didn't speak the whole walk home. The next morning, school felt different. It smelled like smoke. During first period, the fire alarm went off, but there was no fire. Still, the school was evacuated. Outside, the fire marshal found something strange, scorch marks on the inside of the AV room door. The school installed new locks that night. By Thursday, things got worse. Students began reporting voices in the hallways, faint whispers, especially near the lockers on the second floor. One student swore they saw smoke curling out from behind a bulletin board. Teachers acted strange, nervous. Even one refused to come back. The intercom didn't play anything that day, but at exactly 8 p.m., every light in the school flickered, even though no one was inside. On Friday, we expected silence, but at 8 a.m., the girl's voice returned. This time, she was crying. I told them to leave. They never listened. I still hear them scream." Half the class was in tears. A student passed out. The guidance counselor walked out and never came back. That evening, I received an email from the librarian. She'd found a sealed letter dated October 3rd, 1973, never mailed. It was addressed to Mom and Dad, written by Amelia. In it, she said she felt something strange in the air that morning and that she dreamed of fire the night before. If anything happens, I want you to know I tried. I really tried to help them. I read it 3 times. I felt like crying. The next Monday, Mr. Hardley didn't come to school. Rumors flew. Then, that afternoon, the district sent an announcement. He'd resigned, citing personal reasons. A janitor later told me he found a note in Hardley's desk. I was there that day. I heard her on the intercom. I didn't believe her. I should have. I see her face every night. The next day, the intercom crackled one final time. Amelia's voice was softer now, almost peaceful. You heard me. Thank you. I can go now. A deep sigh followed. Then, silence. Permanent silence. No more voices. No more static. It's been 5 years. The school stands. No one talks about the fire anymore. But every October 3rd, at exactly 8 a.m., the lights flicker. Just once. And if you listen closely, and I mean really listen, you might hear a girl whisper, "Please, listen this time."